This is not a critique. Even the flaws of this piece are charming. This is not even a review. I cannot have any objectivity with a toy this beloved by the author. This is a love letter. A love letter to the greatest toy I own. And as far as a video essay is concerned, I've been composing this for at least 15 years. I hope I can rise to the pressure. The Tomahawk. Oh man. Let me begin by saying that G.I. Joe's function as a rapid deployment strike force is irrevocably reliant on helicopters. The attack helicopter was sufficiently filled early on, and Dragonflies were quickly pulling double duty as transports with those skid pegs seeing a lot of use. But it wasn't enough. How could it be? It's almost unthinkable if the line was 5 series deep before the Tomahawk arrived. But the toy no doubt benefited from the line being at its commercial and technical peak for the timing of its debut. A bit of personal history I want to get on record. My first exposure to the Tomahawk was in the pages of the G.I. Joe comic book. I saw it alongside the prolific Cobra transport helicopter and immediately thought that these were comic-only designs, with no toy equivalent. It wasn't until the dawn of the internet that I learned that while the Cobra Whirlybird has indeed never found its way into plastic, the Joe counterpart very much did. And I immediately pestered my father for his credit card so I could purchase one from a fledgling online toy store advertised in the pages of Toy Fair magazine. It never showed up. It would be the mid-2000s by the time I got my first. Late to the party, for sure. The sun was setting on the epic toy adventures my trio of friends used to enjoy. But nevertheless, there were tears of joy shed on the day she arrived. What do I love about the Tomahawk? Well, she is fantastical. 3 jet engines and all those rotors making her faster, lighter, smaller, and yet more powerful than anything offered by reality, and yet she still looks like something that might realistically exist. She's also ubiquitous. Every Joe adventure can and usually did involve her, be it insertion and exfiltration, search and rescue or medivac, or even helicopter gunship attack missions. This thing had more weapons than the Dragonfly if you wanted it in an attack role. But I always preferred it as a troop transport, and of late have been displaying it slimmed down, without the bombs or missiles to keep it lean and light. Clean configuration. She really shines with a team of ass kickers in the back, and your options were limitless. Be a purist and put the Hilo Assault Boys like Crazy Legs, Airborne and Starduster, or the excellent infantry team from 1986, the Roadblockosaurus, Beachhead, Leatherneck and Lowlight. Who's up in the cockpit? Lift ticket, of course, with that impossible mic if you're really lucky. And whoever is next to him better be equally proficient with radio telephony and controlling a massive chain gun. So I'm gonna pick Mr. Lasers and Optics himself, Sci-Fi. Time to get technical. And for that, I'm gonna bring in my man, my childhood friend and 1/3 of G.I. Joburg, it's Rob.
The Tomahawk is some seriously understated brilliance. On the surface, twin rotors with a tail rotor, more on this later. A tan desert scheme with a gorgeous camo pattern over the top. A rare treat for Joe vehicles that seldom saw additional paint application. But peer a little closer and you'll see design touches that push this thing into the stratosphere. Check these additional clear plastic panels, the yaw pedals, the articulated cyclic stick, the instrument sticker. The body of the craft is covered in panel lines and rivets, but left and right do not match. A line that appears in one place on the port side will not necessarily mirror the equivalent line on the other. These 2 panels and these 3 panels are all removable, under pain of breakage, to reveal an insanely detailed trio of engines with additional dark grey exhaust pipes to further pick out the details. This isn't a toy, this is a playable model kit. The beast of a gun has all the range of motion you could hope for, and where the barrels point, the optics package points as well. Amazing! Moving to the troop section, the first thing you notice is the 5 seats and 2 dorsal guns. Immediate customizability. You can chuck out as many seats as you like to clear space for a trio of stretchers and lifeline. But even with 5 troops on board, you can toss backpacks and additional gear in this space 4, and on the ramp aft. Insanely, there is sculpted technical detail in this seldom seen space, and there's an intricate diamond pattern on the floor. If you haul out all the seats, this lean bird can get crammed with 10 or 11 troops if necessary, essential for a swift evacuation. The guns sadly are not intended to be freely removable, which is a shame if the aim of the game is customizability. They do offer an obstacle to freely loading and offloading, and they only offer side-to-side rotation or fixed in this slight depressed angle. But the good far outweighs the bad, since what can be cooler than hanging out the open door of a fast-moving attack helicopter manning the guns? The design themselves is uncharacteristically out there with the ray gun barrels, and they're probably the most cartoonish aesthetic choice on an otherwise seriously realistic looking vehicle. But there's a lot more detail to them than the more ray dorsal guns, and don't feel out of place. They feel just right. But for an all-out attack, you can load this thing up with some serious ordnance. And to talk about stuff that goes boom, here's Paul, beatsmith and designer on the Joburg channel.
Rounding out the armament, if you really want to do some damage, are 6 bombs mounted in clusters of 3 on the 2 canard wings, and a pair of obstacle-clearing air-to-surface missiles. This helicopter is nothing if not versatile, because that combined with the dorsal and chin guns make this a match for any thoroughbred gunship. It's certainly more heavily armed than the Dragonfly. The back ramp opens, which isn't perhaps the easiest feature to make sense of, since the whole design of this helo is open. I guess they ripped the doors off to further reduce her weight, but the back gate remains as a throwback to her more buttoned up heritage. But what can you do with the back ramp? Loading gear or disembarking is awkward, but doable. You can also roll a bike up in there, but a sidecar would be a bridge too far. Above the gate, and making things that much more awkward, is the superfluous tail rotor. Superfluous on a tandem rotor design, as the 2 rotor hubs cancel each other's yawing motion, but I can't deny it completes the look of the helo, and I cannot envision it looking as cool without this gratuitous addition. Plus, the designer saw fit to include 2 features. A thumb wheel to spin the rotors, yeah, this toy requires a crew of 3 to play with it. And a pivot that allows the fan to be directed side to side. If I was to make a junk science explanation for this rotor, perhaps it assists in making this a far more maneuverable helicopter than other twin rotor helos. It can snap into quick jinks by varying the power and pitch of this rotor hub. As for the main rotors, bittersweet. The sweet is that they are an epic 2x5 bladed affair, offering endless whooping fun, provided the blades aren't droopy, provided all 10 are present and unbroken, and provided the rotor hubs themselves have enough play to spin, but not too much so as to wobble. Loads of provisos, I'm afraid, but Steve has one hack that some may find useful.
In the real world, helos of this configuration don't have both rotor sets spinning the same way. If the forward one spins clockwise, the rearward one should spin counterclockwise. So to replicate that, I customize my Tomahawk by flipping the rear blade sets. The additional advantage you gain by doing this is that you can rank your blades in order of sagginess and be sure to place the most saggy on the back hub, allowing gravity to work in your favor for a change. For seriously bent rotors, I would suggest heating and bending with a hairdryer. Would you believe that when I received this in the mail, it had a 90-degree bend to it? The features are not done just yet, as on the underside, in an unobtrusive and easily removed panel, we have a rope winch. You can spool it out to sling load vehicles and equipment beneath this workhorse, and that is simply magnificent.
As for praise for this toy, what more is there to say? Rubber ties with metal rivets mean she's got the feel of a quality toy and will roll exceptionally well if she needs to taxi on the aircraft apron or be towed into position. Which reminds me of 2 possible missed opportunities. A tow hook adapter for the USS Flag's tow vehicle to move the Tomahawk around, and foldable rotors for ease of storage on a flag deck or hangar. At least the latter issue is addressed by the 2011 release of the Eaglehawk, whose rotors are easily collapsed together, because yes, this thing does soak up a lot of room with 2 full rotor diameters.
The design of the gear and its concept art led me to believe it was at one stage going to have retractable landing gear. That would explain these arches. But there isn't much room for a mechanism, and I'd hate for this toy to have an Achilles heel like the Rattler's frail gear. These struts and wheels are as sturdy as they come, and I would know.
I've said it before and I'll say it again, I can't be objective when it comes to this toy. The good far outweighs any of the slight knocks we've mentioned. It's an essential component to, I'd say 75% of any Joe mission I can conceive of, and saw multitudinous use in the cartoons and comic books. The highlight that must get mentioned here is issue 19 of G.I. Joe's Special Missions, entitled Getting There. In it, a Tomahawk is loaded to the gills with fuel in order to complete a secret extraction mission on the very edge of its range and in some very unfriendly territory. High drama ensues with the Tomahawk barely surviving contact from ground fire, a pair of very determined Russian hinds, and even a black market exchange literally on the fly. A jolly little observation I'd like to share after my most recent reread is that at one point Wild Bill complains about how tough it is on the eyes to fly in complete darkness. But does he ever take his sunglasses off? Never! Got some Riddick stuff going on there, Bill? The issue is a one-shot that also happens to cap off a trio of other special missions, but taken on its own, it's the perfect showcase of how the Tomahawk is more than just an aircraft. It is as much a real American hero as any of the flesh and bone G.I. Joes. It'll get you there, it'll get you home, and we love her. Yo Joe.